Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the House Appropriations Committee meeting today. Madam Clerk, would you call up the roll, please? All right, you may close the roll. Thank you, ma'am. All right. We will be hearing members' budget amendments request, and there's one ground rule. You have 3 minutes to make your requests, and when we get to the 3-minute mark, the Vice Chair will let me know that we're at 3 minutes, and you'll probably hear something like this. All right? Okay, all right.
And for the members' information, you all have books in front of you with the member amendments. They are alphabetical in order, and at the beginning there's an index. Delegate Simon is first up, and his amendments start on page 319.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So first up in numerical order, I've got items 12-1H and 2H. These would add $75,000 to the base appropriation for the Virginia Freedom of Information Council and $191,000 for personnel support. Really, essentially, what we're trying to do is add one more body to the Freedom of Information Council to respond to requests for advisory opinions and training. Amigo Wade tells me this is very important. They're overwhelmed and can't adequately respond without this additional bit of money. The third amendment is item 35916H. In Falls Church, we have a Lake Barcroft. Lake Barcroft is created by a dam, which is owned by the Lake Barcroft Watershed Improvement District and regulated by the Division of Dam Safety. Recently, the division increased their certification requirements, and it's going to require them to replace or put about $8 million into improving the dam. And what this appropriation does is ask us for about $500,000, only $500,000 of the $8 million total cost. The improvement district will seek federal and other sources to pay for the rest of it, but with hopes since the Commonwealth is requiring them to make the changes, we kick in $500,000 towards the replacement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate, what were your first two, please? I missed it.
Sorry, first two are 12-1H and 12-2H, and that's to add a body to the Freedom of Information Council.
Okay.
So we have another body to answer requests for information and advisory opinions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Madam Leader, please. Thank you, Delegate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I will first start with item number 109, number 3H. Is creating a solar.
1 second, please.
And her amendments start on page 151.
Thank you.
All right, I apologize, Mr. Chair.
No,
item 109, number 3H, it creates a solar interconnection grant fund and program. Mr. Chair, what's been happening, and especially with our public schools, they're doing their solar program, but they're running into problems with the interconnection fee. The fund would be non-revolving. And it's a competitive bids to get the grant money. Mr. Chair, the next one is item number 102, number 17H. This is the Continuum of Care budget amendment. In Virginia, homelessness has rise, and this budget amendment will provide $2.7 million to support the organizational capacity of the Continuum Care lead agencies which serve the homeless population. It will include also, those Continuum of Care agencies also provide preventative services for individuals as well as getting them off the streets. And then, Mr. Chair, the last one is item number 4-5.12, number 1H. It is a language amendment to bring Virginia back into RGGI. As you are aware, a court has ruled that the Commonwealth's exit by the governor was improper and is to bring us back into RGGI, which has generated in the past $830 million in funds for our flood assistance as well as to help with housing and insulation. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Delegate Glass.
And her amendments begin on page 124.
Thank you.
Hi. Gratitude, Mr. Chair. I come today for 3 vital investments, each about $50,000 lifeline for youth advancement, safety, and well-being. I'll break them down. The first one is item number 124. Item 124, number 32H. It is for Reach Reading Enriching All Children. It's a program that is not just about books, about building brains, breaking barriers. This program is for children facing economic hardship with literacy. This is essentially equity of literacy on the shelf. The second item is item 124, number 35H for the Young Investors Group. Financial literacy is a power here. So this program focuses on high crime, low income communities, which teaches dollars through literally certifications and upskilling, planting word prosperity. And my top priority, which is item number 124, item 124, number 34H, which is for the My 2K program. It's a quiet street-level heroes program. When you see the fight that doesn't happen, or the kid that doesn't carry the gun, or the life is saved before you even know it, these are the folks doing the job within the classrooms as well. So each of these are about prevention, possibility, and protecting the futures of our youth. And I hope you all are able to invest in helping youth rise, not fall. Gratitude, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Next, we have Delegate Batten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have before you today
on page 21.
3 budget items. I'm going to go in numeric order. First is item number 114, 4H. The City of Williamsburg is seeking to develop an African-American heritage trail to create an uplifting narrative sharing the untold, undertold, and overlooked stories of the people, places, and events significant to the African-American community in and around the city. Input on the trail's content has been gathered from an advisory committee, descendants, and the broader local community. The project will establish a 2-mile ADA-accessible pedestrian trail in downtown Williamsburg with multiple interactive features. The city has already secured over $875,000 in funding from various sources, including FY23 congressionally directed spending, the City of Williamsburg Tourism Development Fund, and the Williamsburg Community Foundation. To complete the project in time for the 250th celebration events beginning in 2026, the city is seeking $1,873,000 in one-time funding. Second amendment is item 12427H. This is a budget amendment seeking to create a one-time $1 million grant program to support school divisions that need extra resources to support the implementation of a cell phone-free policy in their schools. Implementation could entail provision of secure bags, pouches, or other storage cabinets to keep phones out of reach of students. Many other states around the country are providing resources to school divisions to help implement phone-free zones, and this would help some of our underserved divisions to do so. The Department of Education would establish the criteria for awarding these funds, and they would be distributed through a competitive grant process, which would prioritize at-risk students and schools. Lastly, I have item 12510, number 4H. This item requests $9 million in state funding to support the construction of 2 dedicated pre-kindergarten facilities in James City County. Currently, the pre-K programs are spread across 5 elementary schools, leading to overcrowding in those schools. The expansion would serve over 100 additional children while improving efficiency and offering academic benefits. The City of Williamsburg and James City County have already committed $35.2 million, and the investment would ensure completion by school year 26-27. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Delegate Green.
And his amendments begin on page 126.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be brief, and be gone. Today, I have 3 individual budget amendments. First one is for VIMS. It's a capital request for $11.8 million for marine operations. The unit maintains and operates over 25 research vessels, does over 1,200 research public outreach trips a year, and 200 scientific dives. Secondly, I'm carrying the budget amendment for the 599 funding, which keeps their police departments current and requires localities to meet personnel trainings, requirements to the state police. Additional localities receive these funds must register sex offenders and notify state police when they do. The recipients of these funds are the counties of Prince William, Fairfax, Chesterfield, Henrico, and the city of Chesapeake, among the 175 recipients of these funds. Finally, I have one last budget amendment, and that is funds for the additional judgeship in the 9th General District. This budget amendment is conditional on the passage of HB 2249. I'd like to thank the committee today.
Delegate Gardner. She's not here. Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two budget amendments. The first is
Those begin on page 353.
C48 3H, which is for planning for the Southern Piedmont Agricultural Research and Extension Center. It's a request for planning, $700,000 general funds for renovating dilapidated facilities at Southern Piedmont Research Center. It will provide a doubling of the size of the center with both support services, a smart greenhouse, and a short-term residential facility for research. And this is a place where the most research on tobacco is done in the Commonwealth. This will come in the line of those planning for Agricultural Research Center, Extension Center. The second item is budget amendment on behalf of Nottoway County. It is item 313, number 1H. Nottoway County is the host of several state facilities, including the Center for Behavioral Rehabilitation. And what has happened in a number of instances is that there are inmates who are transferred to Piedmont Jail because of misbehavior in that center. And when they're transferred, there's a set amount of money that has been provided in the budget for them. But in recent years, Piedmont's charging more and more. And so that charge goes to a very poor county, Nottoway County. And so we're asking for $285,000 from general funds to reimburse Nottoway for state responsible inmates. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, for consideration on these.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Delegate Holt.
These amendments begin on page 166.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to highlight two, and I'll be very brief on the two. That doesn't mean I don't like the others, but I just want to highlight two for you. One is item 371, number 19H. This is a request toward the preservation and restoration of the oldest school in Arlington. It's called the Hume School. The building was built in 1891. It's been undergoing a massive preservation and restoration campaign. It's a multi-million-dollar campaign. We're asking for $50,000 to help finish that. But again, the funding would go towards that structure. The second amendment that I have is budget amendment, that is item number 296, number 17H that I want to highlight. This amendment is seeking $100,000 from the general fund. This would go towards the RAFT program, which is the Regional Older Adults Facility Mental Health Support Team. This is already a program that's already established that's helped older geriatric people with dementia that are ended up in the state hospitals to come back and live closer to home in nursing home and assisted living to make them fully functional in the Northern Virginia community. RAFT is a terrific program. I think it should be statewide. They are going to have a budget shortfall of $100,000, and that's what this budget amendment seeks. It's just $100,000 there. And with that, that completes my presentation for my two budget amendments, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
I thank you.
Delegate Waxman.
These amendments begin on page 342.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. The first item I was going to bring to your attention is item 359-9H. This is under the Natural and Historic Resources. It is a request from Brunswick County to aid to finish complete their day park that's on Lake Gaston. Currently, they've been trying to build a short little pier for daytime fishing, also a boat launch for canoes and kayaks to increase the usability of the recreational areas of that lake. This is the second request. They had it fully funded when they started working on it prior to COVID, but they found some shortfalls as constructions went up, and this amendment, budget amendment from them would help them complete that work. The second item that I have is for $175,000. This is for a former Rosenwald school in the city of Emporia. Will allow them to complete that project. They are reusing what were the ruins for that historic property to repurpose it for more community events and close it in. They've already done some work with that, with having 2 small classrooms and restrooms available and getting ready for the reopening of that facility. And finally, item number 4427H. This is a $2.1 million general fund request from the city of, from Greensville County. This is for the Liberty Road project. You may remember some discussion last year. This is a road that crosses the CSX rail tracks. Greensville County is trying to get a back entrance to that. There is a large church on that road. It's probably has 400 people in it. They have a daycare. There are about 30, 35 homes. That road is dead-ended on the back end, and there have been several times when CSX stops on that rail blocking that crossing because there's no dual track around there. At least twice there have been some medical emergencies on the other side of that track, and one person's believed to have had a fatality because rescue and fire were 30 minutes getting there for them to remove the train. That's all that I have at this time. Thank you, sir, and do appreciate it.
Thank you. Delegate Taylor.
And her amendments begin on page 334.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I have 2 budget requests before you. The first is for Poor Creek Water Upgrade, item number 103, number 13H. This appropriation for $10,100,000 is greatly needed to support the major economic development projects in the Poor Creek service area. In the pharmaceutical cluster, we have Flowcorp, Novo Nordisk, Civica RX, and they depend on this infrastructure upgrades for the future success of the campus, as well as Bon Secours Hospital. These upgrades will also support water and wastewater needs in the neighboring Prince George County, and the County of Prince George expresses their sincere continued support for this request. And my second budget request is item number 281, number 1H. And this comes on behalf of Prince George County. They are asking for $44,000 from the general fund to create a second environmental specialist position. This position within the local health department is responsible for reviewing permits for wells, septic, and restaurant. Prince George is a fast-growing county, and both population and industry, and the health department needs an extra body to process permits and inspections. Thank you.
Delegate Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I have
Amendments begin on page 1.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I have three budget amendment proposals to bring before you. The first one will be item 124, number 25H, Virginia Symphony Orchestra. This is valuable for our district. This amendment will support music education partnerships with the VSO in 14 school districts across Southeast Virginia, impacting 21,000 students. This funding will stabilize and help expand essential arts education. These programs are unique to the Virginia Symphony Orchestra and not otherwise available to schools. And as a violinist, I ask the committee to strengthen our schools across the Southeast Virginia by supporting this amendment. Number 2, item number 441, number 2H. Exempt Hampton Roads transit vehicles from Elizabeth River Crossing charge tolls. As we know, public transportation vehicles operated by Hampton Roads Transit, HRT, includes fixed route buses, paratransit, transit service vehicles that travel throughout toll facilities managed by Elizabeth River Crossings. Public transportation eases congestion, provides transportation, and we know all those things where others have no access to transportation. And for this reason, I am requesting favorable consideration for a budget amendment to provide $200K in the second year of biennium, which shall be used to defray public transportation costs on toll facilities. Budget amendment number 3. This is item 3-5.5, number 1H, to strike the language regarding circuit court clerks' excess fees. This amendment repeals item 3-5.05 of the Appropriations Act, which mandates appropriating excess fees collected by the circuit court clerks, contrary to the current code sections, and there are many. A delayed enactment date is proposed to allow the Commonwealth time to adjust for the FY25 budget. Virginia law guarantees that excess fees collected by circuit court clerks should primarily go to support local communities. Since 2008, the financial crisis, the state has taken 2/3 of these funds, leaving localities underfunded. Fairfax, Loudoun, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and other localities across critical resources every year that lose critical resources that could strengthen clerk offices' essential services. My amendment will restore $9.5 million annually to localities where it belongs, ensuring these funds directly serve our communities. So let's fix this and bring money back to our localities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Griffin.
Let's begin on page 127.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many of you know, some of the most severely disabled people in the Commonwealth were at the training center in Amherst County. When that shut down a few years ago, many of them were moved to the Hiram Davis facility over in Petersburg. That facility is going to be shutting down. The administration announced, and I think any of you who have visited over there understand why, because there's a lot of alterations, a lot of fixes that need to be done over there. So what we're asking is, as these people are shifted over, and it looks like they're going to be moving to Chesapeake, although that's still an open question, I believe, what we're asking for is $20 million to start the process of creating those 50 licensed skilled nursing beds at Southeastern Virginia Training Center, of which 10 shall be available for short-term rehabilitation placements. The department, upon closure of Hiram Davis, shall transfer the amounts estimated at $25 million per year that represent the operating budget for Hiram Davis as it is right now. We also, as part of this, put in there the department shall maintain the Joint Commission accreditation, because when you're dealing with healthcare facilities like that, letting the accreditation go on one can make a major difference. That's what we're asking for today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Gardner.
And her amendments begin on page 123.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I have item, I believe it's 125.10, 11H, and it's related to House Bill 1972, Universal Pre-K. To address the issues related to early childhood education in Virginia, a comprehensive legislative package should focus on expanding access, improving the quality of early childhood education programs, and supporting families and educators. This package should include a universal, voluntary pre-kindergarten program to ensure that all children in Virginia, regardless of income, have access to high-quality early childhood education. HB 1972 requires that the Commonwealth of Virginia shall provide universal, voluntary, and free access to pre-kindergarten for all children aged 3 and 4 by 2026. The program shall be available to public schools, licensed child care centers, and community-based organizations. Universal Pre-K helps to close the achievement gap and prepares children for academic success. Studies show that early childhood education leads to better outcomes in school readiness and long-term cognitive development. In addition, in my bill, it requires that the Department of Education, in order to assist with making the statewide unified public-private system early childhood care education in the Commonwealth universally accessible, that we create and establish a comprehensive free online early childhood education program that is accessible to all families and children who have children who is of the age of 3 and 4 year olds. That focuses on school readiness, social and emotional development, and language acquisition, and to include a hybrid learning option whereby a local community center or libraries serve as learning hubs for weekly in-person activities. These legislative proposals aim to expand access to early childhood education, improve the quality of programs, support families and educators, and create a more equitable system in Virginia. It is my hope that while this legislation comes with a price tag, and I've been told a pretty big price tag, that you consider some parts of it favorably, such as the innovative online program. Thank you so much for your consideration in this matter.
Thank you. Delegate Walker.
Mr. Chairman, I have 3 items here before you today. The first budget amendment.
One second, Delegate. One second.
Sorry to help them find them. Begins on page 344.
Yes, sir, Delegate.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first budget amendment I have is item C, 24.1, number 1 item. I bring this request to you on behalf of many of the patients that are at Hiram Davis. They were once in Lynchburg at the facility there. It was closed down. As a result of that facility closing down and moving these patients, one of those patients died here. So this is a very critical issue. I know that members of this committee have been to Hiram Davis to examine these facilities. These beds are being used to transfer complex patients currently living at Hiram Davis Medical Center in Petersburg. Hiram Davis is pending closure, and there's no other licensed skilled beds in the state that can accommodate these patients. This funding must be used to improve the care facilities for these future patients here. Item number 2 is 279, item number 4. My second request is support the free clinic of Central Virginia. This amendment would provide one-time funding to help them restore care to the community following a fire at this location in Lynchburg. Senator Deeds has also submitted a budget amendment to this request as well. And then item 3, I want to bring to your attention item 3-1.10, number 4, which is my amendment to provide the one-time funding to the fire department to offset the cost of new regulations requiring the operation of a pharmacy by each department. So those are my requests, and the first one is very personal to me, and I hope we can find some satisfaction to take care of those that cannot take care of themselves. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Scott.
His amendments begin on page 273.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have 2 budget amendments that I'd like to speak to today. The first one, I'm sorry, my phone is acting up here. Let me try something else here real quick. The first one is
I'm sorry, those begin on page 273.
Okay. Item 390, number 11H, Department of Corrections. This is a $50,000 budget amendment request related to House Bill 2406, which is yet to be heard, but there's an issue in the code where a person who is trying to escape custody and they injure a police officer, they shall be guilty. And there was an incident that happened in one of my localities where they injured a sheriff's deputy, and because it was a sheriff's deputy and not a police officer, they were not found guilty. And so it's fixing a technical issue in the code, and because of that, it's got this budget amendment with it as well. The next item I would like to speak to is item 365, number 11H. This has to do with a water treatment facility in my locality. Yes, water issues are running again all over Virginia. And in my locality, there is a local water treatment facility that there was an issue with several of the pumps failing, mineral oil spilling into the water. Residents were without water for just over a week in the middle of summer. And what this would do is this would allow funding for the second phase of their building project. which would allow them to build another treatment facility to meet the needs and the demands of the growing area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. And have a great day.
Thank you. Delegate Henson.
His amendments begin on page 142.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have introduced two priority budget amendments for your consideration. The first one is item 223, number 1H for Gunston Hall. This budget amendment will provide $900,000 and 5 full-time employees from the general fund to provide additional operating support for Gunston Hall to ensure sustainability and effectiveness for Gunston Hall's operations. The second budget amendment, item 331, number 12H for Lorton Community Action Center. This budget amendment will provide $400,000 from the general fund to Fairfax County for the Lorton Community Action Center, an organization which provides low-income individuals, senior citizens, and families access to basic needs and self-sufficiency programs. This funding would allow Lorton Community Action Center to provide rental assistance to their clients. I'd like to thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Delegate Fowler.
His amendments begin on page 122.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I think you're familiar with at least this first amendment, which again, on behalf of Lake Anna, I'm asking for $1 million from the general fund in the fiscal year of 2026 to continue the support for the bacteria mitigation and remediation at Lake Anna. So we've seen that before. It's an ongoing battle. And with the previous funding, we are beginning to make, I think, some progress on that. The second amendment is for $33,000, and this amendment provides a $33,000 from the general fund in fiscal year 2026 to support buoy placement, as well as some continued maintenance and hydrilla mitigation for Lake Anna. Mr. Chairman, I'll just admit, over the last several years, the buoys, due to weather and the wind and all, the buoys have drifted all over the lake, and so in order to, I think it's critical for safe navigation that we have the buoys back in their place. And so this $33,000 would take care of that, Mr. Chairman, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Bennett Parker.
And her amendments begin on page 23.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 371-15H asks for matching funds of $500,000 to preserve Douglas Memorial Cemetery. This historic burial ground has been in use since 1827 and was officially established in 1895 as a segregated African-American cemetery named in honor of Frederick Douglass. It holds the stories of more than 2,000 individuals, though fewer than 700 grave markers remain visible today. The cemetery faces severe challenges, years of abandonment, the wear of time, and extensive flooding that causes the ground to sink and headstones to topple. These issues not only compromise public access, but also dishonor the memory of those buried there. This one-time funding will dignify the sacred space, allowing families to honor their ancestors and preserve our history to ensure that future generations can learn from these stories. The next item is 365, number 12H, which asks for funding for Alexandria's combined sewer overflow control project. This project, mandated by the General Assembly in 2017, is the largest infrastructure initiative in Alexandria's history, with a total cost of $615 million. Alexandrians have contributed $475 million and shoulder an extraordinary burden, facing projected sewer rate increases of 76%, amounting to $7,500 per household. While the project is 75% complete, COVID-19 disruptions, global supply chain challenges, and inflation have driven up costs, necessitating additional state support to stay on track for the revised 2026 deadline. The state investment in CSO projects has always been viewed with the intent of all localities undertaking these projects getting a similar proportional amount of investment. This amendment would fulfill that goal and would replenish contingency funds used to address inflation, ensure compliance with state mandates, and mitigate the financial strain on residents. Last but not least, item 324, number 5H, would help alleviate hunger amongst senior citizens. Over 175,000 seniors in our Commonwealth do not have enough food to eat. A number of other states have passed state-funded SNAP supplements to ensure that seniors have food on their table because the minimum benefit is so low at just $23 a month. This amendment would increase the minimum benefit from $23 per month to $50 per month. And this does not just affect hunger, but overall health. Food insecure seniors have worse health outcomes. They are 74% more likely to be diabetic, 71% more likely to have congestive heart failure, and 64% more likely to have experienced a heart attack. Addressing hunger will not only save Virginians' lives, but it will save the Commonwealth in medical costs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Delegate LaVere Bowling.
Those amendments begin on page 198.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. The first one is item number 288, number 45H, which expands the eligibility, remote patient monitoring eligibility to all pregnant and postpartum patients enrolled in Medicaid. Remote patient monitoring offers patients and providers greater opportunity for detection and prevention of potentially negative healthcare outcomes. The second one is item 315, number 9H. Virginia's Dementia State Plan provides a blueprint for a fully dementia-capable state. This is a key component that is the availability of quality, person-centered care management services to families living with dementia. This amendment would add funds to provide care management services to families living in the Richmond and Roanoke areas. And then my third is item 277, number 8H, which will assist in supporting the integration of state resources with an already established mobile application called Pregnancy Plus. This funding would provide pregnant women with readily accessible resources and information to help guide them throughout their pregnancy from prenatal to postpartum. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you.
Delegate Cherry.
His amendments begin on page 73.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity. I will be addressing item C 52.10.5H. This amendment appropriates $2.6 million for the design and planning of a joint emergency operations center and IT department at Richard Bland College. Here's some key interesting facts about the current building. HVAC, plumbing, and electrical are all at the end of their life. Fun fact, it was a repurposed hay barn that they then turned into an office building. It is not ADA compliant. There's no fire suppression system. There are no private spaces if they're meeting with the victim of a crime. There's mold and water leaks, as you would expect in a building that used to be, did I mention, it was a hay barn. A new building will solve these concerns and allow for Richard Bland's police department to better serve the student population, staff, and faculty, particularly as we are concerned about campus safety in light of today's environment. I hope that you will act favorably upon this amendment. Mr. Chairman, I have photographs and additional information that will be delivered via email from Richard Bland College to show you the condition of the facility they're currently using. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Delegate Fagan.
His amendments begin on page 120.
Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. Item 279, number 19H, we are requesting $1.25 million in recurring state funds from the general fund for the Stephen A. Cohen Military Family Clinic at the UP Center in Virginia Beach. This funding will ensure that 700 veterans, active duty service members, and their families continue receiving high-quality mental health care, including over 7,000 clinical therapy session funds annually. The funds will cover essential operations like clinician salaries, IT, and patient transportation. Next, we are looking at funding request for item 331, number 10H, for $200,000 for a multi-purpose sports court at the Hollow Victims Treatment Facility. This facility serves exploited and trafficked youth, providing a safe haven and comprehensive recovery services. The sports court will promote physical and mental enrichment, fostering healthy development and resilience in these young survivors. Lastly, item 125.10, number 5H, we are requesting $500,000 from the general fund for the Classroom and Care Connection initiatives, a pilot program addressing the child care challenges faced by educators and support staff. by providing on-site daycare at 3 schools within Virginia Beach. This initiative will help to retain educators while enabling them to better balance work and family responsibilities. Thank you, committee.
Delegate Delaney.
And her amendments begin on page 112.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, Mr. Chairman and committee, I have item 288, number 34H. This amendment is designed to match our coverage in Medicaid with Medicare CMS standards for the use of continuous glucose monitors. Diabetes in the Commonwealth continues to be a major health problem for our population. Every year, over 40,000 individuals are diagnosed with diabetes in Virginia, and over 11% of the adult population in the Commonwealth has diabetes. Over 30 states have conformed their coverage to the Medicare standards, currently making Virginia an outlier. So the language in my amendment directs DMAS to conform to the Medicare coverage standards and provides $1.2 million in general and non-general funds in order to provide this coverage to our most vulnerable populations. Included with this amendment will help improve healthcare outcomes for our Medicaid population while reducing healthcare costs. Mr. Chairman, next I have item 394, number 7H. The sexual and domestic violence programs administered by our Commonwealth aid hundreds of Virginians who fall victim to horrendous crimes and are forced to navigate intense trauma afterward. Sadly, these services are facing cuts due to significant reduction in federal funding that Virginia typically receives through the Victims of Crime Act. This amendment would provide an additional $8.25 million in funding from the Commonwealth in order to restore these vital programs to the level of funding they received before federal cuts. And Mr. Chairman, my final amendment that I'm offering today is item 60, number 4H. In the section of Virginia Code establishing offices of the sheriff, each county is permitted 1 sheriff's deputy for every 1,500 in population. In order to meet this requirement in code, using estimates for population growth between 2022 and 2023 conducted by the Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service and the University of Virginia, the Commonwealth will require an additional 315 sworn deputies across its county sheriff's offices. So the language in my amendment provides an additional $15,165,650 to hire these deputies in accordance with Virginia Code and population growth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee.
Thank you. Delegate Phillips.
His amendments begin on page 244.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first one is item 360, number 9H. This right here would provide $1.2 million from the general fund in fiscal year 2026 for 4 positions to initiate operations at a newly established Mayo River State Park, which is Land Bank State Park that was purchased in 2009. This park contains 332 acres in Henry County, Virginia, and 19 acres in Rockingham, North Carolina. This funding includes initial equipment and vehicle purchases for 4 full-time employees, office space rental, and operational expenses for the opening of the park to the public. Funding operations and funding these positions would allow for the opening of the park and the development of resources for visitor services. Now the park is only open during the day visits for hiking. Also, I have item number 230, number 1H, Virginia Museum of Natural History. They're asking for $70,702 the first year and $72,823 the second from the general fund provided for salary increases for museum employees to address salary alignment challenges and enhance staff retention. The funding will establish competitive base salaries for educators and provide modest incentive increases to promote workforce stability. These efforts are critical to attracting and retaining skilled professionals, maintaining compliance with regulatory changes, and ensuring the museum's ability to fulfill its mission of education, community engagement, and scientific research. Strategic investment will help the museum remain competitive in the current job market while safeguarding its long-term operational capacity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Hernandez. Delegate Ennis.
Amendments begin on page 118.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Budget item 457 would allocate $1 million to the Albert G. Horton Veterans Cemetery in Suffolk, Virginia for improvements and expansion. Outside of Arlington National Cemetery, the Horton Veterans Cemetery is the largest in Virginia and will soon be reaching its maximum capacity. The cemetery services the Hampton Roads region, providing a resting place for those who have honorably served our Commonwealth and country. Identifying and acquiring new land to accommodate new burials is both a practical and a moral imperative. Budget item C48 would provide $310,000 in fiscal year 2025 and $5.3 million in fiscal year 2026 for the development, plans, conceptual design, and construction of the Museum of the Virginia National Guard. Virginia is the only state of the original 13 colonies without an official National Guard museum, despite having the oldest branch of the National Guard dating back to the original Jamestown settlement militia in 1607. Amid the growing nationwide military recruiting and retention crisis, Virginia residents who may consider enlisting in the National Guard have no competing community hub to gather with current and veteran soldiers and airmen to learn about the Guard's history or contemporary service options. Without this museum to function as an active education center, Virginia will continue to miss opportunities to reach potential new National Guardsmen, to better retain current Guardsmen by appropriately recognizing their service, keep and attract more veterans in Virginia, and ensure accurate education about how the National Guard serves the Commonwealth and nation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Delegate Martinez.
Mr. Chairman, Committee. My first amendment request is item 124, number 40H. This amendment requests $1 million from the general fund to support the construction of a visitor center and leadership development programming at George C. Marshall Dodona Manor in Leesburg, Virginia. This facility will host high school students from across the Commonwealth with a special focus on students from Title I schools in Planning District 8. The new facility will provide leadership education to more than 200 students annually. Students will gain insight and experience with the essential character development traits of selfless service, unwavering integrity, and visionary leadership. Funding model is made up of three components: $1 million private funding, $1.5 million grant from Loudoun County, and $1 million grant from the Commonwealth. My next amendment request is item 297-19H. This amendment would provide the Ark of Loudoun, which houses a school for autism, $350,000 to purchase buses to securely transport individuals with disabilities to and from its campus. Approval of this request to the Ark of Loudoun would have the potential to benefit 5,000 people with disabilities from Loudoun, Fairfax, Prince William, and Arlington counties, District of Columbia, and cities of Alexandria and Falls Church, and their families, caregivers, first responder, veterans, and the professionals who serve them. Transportation is a major challenge in Northern Virginia, especially for people with disabilities. Granting the Ark of Loudoun funding for transportation would allow people with disabilities to attend more programs and connect with their communities, receive the resources and support they deserve. My third amendment is item 33111H. This amendment would provide Mobile Hope $700,000 to support its critical, unduplicated services for homeless youth in Loudoun County, addressing the significant increase in homelessness and the urgent need for resources to move these vulnerable individuals toward self-sufficiency. The funding would provide targeted support to move youth from crisis to stability. sustain and grow the Listen for the Hong program, which remains a critical component of its support system for marginalized communities and empowering experience for Youth in Mobile Hopes program. It will also reduce the long-term social and financial costs associated with homelessness, such as unemployment and reliance on public assisted programs and the judicial system. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Thank you. Douglas Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start with item number 394, number H.
And her amendments begin on page 246.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And I first want to say thank you for your hard work in funding gun violence prevention to historic amounts in previous budgets. Communities around Virginia have been invested in with state and federal dollars to save children's lives and change their futures. One of those programs, the Victor program, is currently helping save lives in Hampton Roads and is currently funded by a grant with the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. But as we know, there was a shift today, and future funding for that program and even the existence of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention is in question. So, Mr. Chair, FBI data shows that there's been a sharp decline in murders and other crimes, and we want to keep that trend going. So this particular integrated model of violence prevention work could be scaled up and replicated across the Commonwealth. So we are hoping to pass the budget amendment to keep their work going because we know what works, Mr. Chair, but we'd like to fund it. And I will leave with you an article about that FBI data. My next one is 140, number 5. And this would be funding to the College of William and Mary for establishing a community law clinic. There, it would help low-income communities in the surrounding areas who need legal representation in civil matters. So specifically, we are experiencing a housing crisis, and so these lawyers would be, law students would be able to join in helping with pro bono services for, say, like evictions proceedings. And these are underrepresented members of the Greater Hampton Roads community where we are being hard hit with those numbers of eviction cases. It would also create an opportunity for about 20 more law students to have this learning experience toward becoming effective legal advocates, further establishing a workforce pipeline for legal representation for the underserved. And this would be in conjunction with other organizations already doing great work, just helping to expand capacity. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I have 103, number 1. As you'll remember, we as a body passed a bill to establish military-centered community zones last year to help localities home to many military members and families, but outside of an actual base. And so this budget amendment would jumpstart economic development grants needed for renovations, updates, and new construction to make sure that we're doing all that we can to improve the quality of life for sailors and the like. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before you leave?
Yes.
All right, look at me real good.
Uh-oh.
Look at me
I'm
real.
scared. I don't want to. Yes, sir.
I do no way look like Mr. Speaker.
I know. I'm very sorry for that. Charge it to my session brain, not my heart.
Love you, girl.
Mr. Chair.
I'll talk to you later. All right. Chair Ward.
And her amendments begin on page 347.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My first amendment is item 64, number 3H, and this amendment provides $25.7 million in the second year from the general fund to support 206 additional assistant Commonwealth attorney positions, 115 paralegal positions, and 132 administrative support positions. These positions align with the new staffing standards that were published by the Compensation Board. A companion amendment to this item 64 specifies the positions in the position count table. This is based on the legislation that we passed back in 2020, where people were now allowed to have their case is heard by a jury. And the next budget amendment is number 371-18H, and it's the Barrett Peak Heritage Foundation. And the Barrett Peak Heritage Foundation is dedicated to preserving history and engaging our community. We care for 3 historic cemeteries, Civil War era cemeteries in Hampton, and we are prioritizing the renovation of the last headquarters of the Virginia Federation of Colored Women's Clubs. This club existed particularly for young colored or black girls who were coming out from being incarcerated. They came into this facility and they were taught different types of ways of taking care of themselves, teaching them how to sew and cook and such. And so we're asking for funding for that particular foundation so we could carry on the work of all of our predecessors. That's $75,000. And my last one is item 371-18H, and CNU, Community College Transfer. And this amendment requests funding to increase transfer opportunities for students enrolled in Virginia Community College System. This new funding will enhance collaboration with the community college system by growing the Captain Connection program with Virginia Peninsula Community College, supporting the Transfer Virginia initiative, and providing peer academic coaches to newly enrolled transfer students. And those are my 3 amendments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Delegate Mildy.
His amendments begin on page 229.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 amendments to speak to real quickly. This first one is the Menhaden study, the VMS study for $3 million. And yes, I took the bait. Specifically, we're talking about the practice of using a spotter airplanes.
What's the item number, please?
I'm sorry, item 148-4H. Thank you. This is the practice, if you don't know, of using spotter airplanes to locate schools of Menhaden and capturing them with giant nets and multiple boats. Currently, the cap set right now in the bay is 50,000 metric tons. To put that in perspective, it's more than the weight of a battleship. But the truth is, we don't really know if that's too much or too little, that the bay may very well support that type of fishing. Current Menhaden management relies on incomplete information. This research will provide the scientific foundation needed to make sound decisions that balance the needs of the fishery with the ecological importance of that keystone species. Menhaden are essential to the health of the Chesapeake Bay, supporting a variety of commercial and recreational fisheries, as well as being a critical link in the Chesapeake Bay food chain. So by investing in this research, we can make informed decisions about Menhaden management and protect this vital species for future generations. The other amendment I'll speak to is item 17H. This amendment is about the local composite index and how that is calculated. Stafford County, I'll explain, Stafford County is proud to be a place so many disabled veterans are choosing to call home. In fact, 7% of our real estate tax is now forgiven under the Disabled Veterans Relief codified in the Virginia Constitution. This is more than twice what the next nearest locality is forgiving, and this percentage is climbing. Currently, that represents over $20 million annually for Stafford. The LCI is calculated using, in large part, the value of assessed real estate. The state is currently conducting a review of funding formulas as part of the K-12 Funding Joint Subcommittee. Simply, this proposal would direct them to add that impact of tax and exonerated properties to their current study. This, of course, is so that the localities can continue to provide excellent services they are offering to those heroes and their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Cohen.
Her amendments begin on page 80.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My first item is number 292, number 8H. This amendment would automatically enroll SSI recipients in Medicaid without having to do a secondary process and review. It accepts the review from SSA and enrolls them.
We are one of only 8 states who does not already do this, making it harder in Virginia for SSI recipients than the vast majority of the country. The next item is 328, number 7H. This amendment proposes language to ensure that the auxiliary grant calculation be paid as a full allocation of the amount approved by the General Assembly and ensuring the rate is approved in addition to other income rather than the difference of as currently implemented. This is essential for assisted living facilities who rely on the full auxiliary grant rate to provide high-quality care and services to their residents. Subtracting other income such as SSI from the auxiliary grant rate threatens the financial stability needed to maintain operations and ensure consistent care. My last item is 437, number 3H. Like many localities, our district has seen increased bicycling and pedestrian accidents and fatalities, including the death of a Lake Braddock student about 3 months ago trying to cross the street after a football game. It's with that in mind that we're asking for $1 million from the general fund to be provided to support the existing bicycle and pedestrian program, to incentivize localities to make pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements to roadways, with a particular emphasis on creating safe pathways to schools for our students. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Lovejoy.
These amendments begin on page 206.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Speaking first to item 331, number 24. This amendment provides $200,000 each year from the general fund to implement a comprehensive pilot foster care program at Youth for Tomorrow, which provides comprehensive residential education and counseling services to at-risk youth in Virginia who have been sexually exploited. Funding for this program will allow for the addition of foster care and family specialists and the recruitment of more families to participate with Youth for Tomorrow, as well as to provide behavioral health services, workforce development, kinship expansion, and to achieve permanency at home and other support services to foster care youth. Moving to item 415, number 3, this amendment provides for $150,000 from the general fund for year 2026 in accordance with the establishment of a domestic and sexual assault convictions database. And lastly, item 484, number 5, this amendment provides VRS with $365,000 from the non-general fund pursuant to to allow for retired law enforcement officers to return to work full-time as law enforcement officers and continue to receive their pension under the Virginia retirement system. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and member of the committee.
Delegate Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have 2 budget amendments that I would like to speak to today. The first one is item 371, number 21H, Plains Preservation Project Phase 2 for $25,000. Plains, Virginia is a small historic town in Fauquier County with a budget of just $232. The town is facing investment and development ideas that would strip the town of its unique and eclectic character and make it such a gem in today's homogenized communities. The town is also listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is a historic district. In 2023, the Plains received a VA DHR grant for $10,000 in developing Phase 1, and we're able to fundraise another $10,000 to get through Phase 1, and has currently been completed. In September of 2024, the Plains received a budget amendment from Fauquier County for $12,500 as a partial match for the $25,000 that they are asking for this year to complete Phase 2 of the preservation plan. The preservation plan focuses on identifying, documenting, and preserving key sites of the Reconstruction era African-American history, including Foster Hill African-American School and 4 other sites. Overall, this small investment will ensure the continuation of this preservation plan, which aims to ensure that all the history encompassed in the Plains, Virginia remains intact for generations to come. Senator Russet Perry is carrying a matching amendment in the Senate. Thank you for your consideration. The second one is item 442, number 6H, and it is $450,000 for traffic calming along Route 17 in Fauquier County. VDOT has identified the three most dangerous intersections in Fauquier County: Tavern Road, Old Tavern Road, Belvoir Road, and Blantyre Road. This study was done in April of 2024. These funds would go to put speed cameras at those locations. In addition to that, we're looking for 16 signs that would state speed increase fine on Route 17 between Marshall to Warrenton. We have 8 now that have been bought and paid for by private funds, and one additional intersection would be added, and that is O'Banion Road and Route 17. In conjunction with the 8 existing signs, that would be a consistent of good reminders, especially with police force present or not present. Route 15 now gets 7.3 million vehicles a year, and that is VDOT data from underground cables buried along this section of the road. So I thank you for consideration, and I would appreciate those being added to the budget. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Mondin King.
And her amendments begin on page 233.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. The First Amendment provides an income tax credit for student loan interest. This amendment introduces a refundable income tax credit of up to $1,000 for student loan interest payments. Eligibility is limited to individuals filing as single with adjusted incomes below $75,000 and married individuals filing jointly with incomes below $150,000. The goal is to provide financial relief to borrowers and encourage economic stability during these difficult financial times. The second is to dredge and rebuild the environmental infrastructure for the beautiful Quantico Creek, which is one of the crown jewels of the 23rd District. And this funding will enhance the resilience of the town of Dumfries against flood-related damage, protect local ecosystems, and create opportunities for community development. And the third and final is funding that is part of the Momnibus proposal to establish a billing hub for doulas in Virginia. Doulas are critical care partners, and we're hoping to pilot a program that would provide them with administrative and technical support to easily start up their businesses. And that is it. Thank you so much.
Do me a favor, Delegate. Give me the item numbers again, please.
Yes. So the first item number is 3-5.25, and it's number 4H.
1 second. I'm not seeing. Notice. It's down at the bottom. Okay, thank you. And your second one?
The second one is 279.13H.
And your third?
And I'm sorry, that is the third one. My apologies.
What's the second one?
The second one is 359.13H.
Okay, 359. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Delegate Maldonado.
And her amendments begin on page 208.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My first item is 271, number 8H, and this is a request for $75,000 for Birmingham Green. Birmingham Green offers the only free certified nursing assistant training program in Northern Virginia. The program targets unemployed and underemployed individuals, particularly from underserved communities, including minorities and immigrants. Birmingham Green has served our area in Northern Virginia for the last 90 years, serving patients from Medicare and Medicaid, from Alexandria to Points West. They include skilled nursing care, long-term care, assisted living care, including memory care. And we are hoping that we can help them improve their existing CNA program and open it up, not just to their staff, but to people in the area. Anyone who has a high school diploma is helping to put people on the road and on the path to career development and opportunities. We're hoping it'll provide economic pathways for folks. Their program has been very successful to date. We're just hoping to support further. The second amendment item is 124, number 45H, and we're asking for $150,000 to help expand Code VA's program for artificial intelligence pathways. There are 3 separate programs. First is seeking the state funding to expand the transformative programs, ensuring equitable access to artificial intelligence education as we work on pipeline development from in the K-12 space. The first program is Artificial Intelligence Pathways for grades 9 through 12, deeper learning with Teachable Machine for grades 5 through 12, and an AI robotics competition programming for grades 9 through 12 as well. The third item is a language item, helping to ensure language that's an extension from our work on opioid addiction prevention, where we're asking that that the language follow and track throughout the budget, that lists that opioids are not non-opioid treatments are not less favorably positioned or disadvantaged than opioid prescriptions. That is a non-money ask amendment, and those conclude my 3. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Oh, I did that just like Delegate Price. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
I think what I'm going to do the next time we have our meeting, I'm going to grab a picture of the speaker and put it right beside my name.
Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Wilt.
His amendments begin on page 386.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, committee members. Did I say that?
What happened?
It's contagious, Mr. Chairman. Something in the air.
Well, we better get it out there. Delegate, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 124, number 42H, funds $5 million for a school safety and security grant fund per House Bill 2364. Mr. Chairman, I would note that we're offering a substitute for that bill to more closely aligns with the criteria of the one-time school safety and security grant fund that was included in the caboose budget last year. That grant was a big help to our local schools in addressing security, school safety, and training needs. And I would simply like the opportunity for this support to continue beyond the existing school security equipment grant fund. Mr. Chairman, next before the body is item 359, number 11H, calls for $850,000 for a local park in the city of Harrisonburg. And I'll note that this request is 1/4 of the amount needed to build the park. The city has an MOU with a local group to build a park in downtown Harrisonburg that would include amenities such as a permanent stage, plaza, water feature, play area, multipurpose lawn, landscaping, sunshades, solar panels, restrooms, storage, and donor wall. The MOU contains provisions that if the funds are raised privately, $3.5 million in total, then the city will maintain the park moving forward. The park will enhance downtown revitalization initiatives supporting farmers markets, the existing businesses, as well as attracting new businesses. In fact, Mr. Chairman, I understand that there are already 2 economic development projects in the works that have been reached specifically on the proposal that this park be built. The park is adjacent to the future 10.5-mile pedestrian and cycling greenway. The city's excited, Mr. Chairman, about programming, events, concerts, festivals will attract tourists, visitors to the city, the hospitality and dining venues, therefore additional revenues to the city and the state. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your time in the committees.
Stay right there, please, Delegate Delegate Sickles has a question for you.
Well, I just have one question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So HB 2364 is funding for an SRO in every elementary school in Virginia? Is that what that is?
No.
I don't believe.
What does that bill do that you want to fund here? HB
Basically, as I described it, it started out as a standalone, Mr. Chairman, but then what we're trying to do with the amendment, with the substitute, is to bring it more closely in lines with the school safety and security grant from the caboose budget last year.
Okay. Okay, so that's things like the schools can apply for.
Yeah, secure, what they deem necessary as far as, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, security, school safety, training needs, and the like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
To members, just please know we're trying to stick as close as possible to how you signed up in the queue. So if you're seated for just a little while, that's the reason why, but we're trying to move things along according to the queue, okay? And what typically may happen, some of you may be seated for a while and then a member will show up who is ahead of you in the queue. So since that person is ahead of you in the queue, we go ahead and call them up, okay? Trying to be fair. Okay, Delegate Hernandez.
And his amendments begin on page 146.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Happy to hold my three budget amendments. First up is 37114H. That requests $100,000 for the city of Norfolk to conduct surveys of the Titustown neighborhood to determine its eligibility for a historic district designation. Just for a bit of context, Titustown was founded in the early 1900s as an African-American community in the midst of Jim Crow, and yet was distinguished by its proud tradition of home ownership and strong sense of identity. To this day, there remain beautiful churches and buildings in this important community. And the funding for the surveys would help to protect and celebrate that history. The second budget amendment for me is 35910H. And that requests $450,000 to support a critical sand replenishment project in the city of Norfolk, specifically along a stretch of coastline on Willoughby Spit that has experienced severe erosion, putting both people and property at risk. They can no longer get emergency vehicles through that section. This, by the way, is envisioned as a 50-50 cost share. So Norfolk is prepared to match $450,000 in this shovel-ready project, and I'm told it can be completed in this calendar year if funded. Third and finally, and this is the big one, this is 359-8H. This is a request for an appropriation in the amount of $50 million to fund half of Norfolk's non-federal match of $100 million for Phase 1 of the Coastal Storm Risk Management Project. Norfolk, as you all know, is ground zero for sea level rise and land subsidence. The city has one of the highest rates of relative sea level rise, second only to New Orleans. At the same time, we're a critical hub for the military. 94th is home to the largest naval base in the world. We're also an epicenter for commerce through the Norfolk International Terminals and the Virginia Port Authority. In terms of the infrastructure project overall, I think, as you know, 35% of the costs are borne by the local and the state, and 65% is paid for by the federal government, meaning that we have the opportunity to unlock a $1.7 billion investment from the federal government and generate significant economic and environmental benefits for the city of Norfolk and for the Commonwealth as a whole. And those are my three, and I appreciate your time and consideration.
Delegate Simon.
And her amendments begin on page 321.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope that was Simons and not Simon. The first.
Really? Oh.
My first item is 394-15H, Expand Safer Communities Program. This amendment expands eligibility to my city, Newport News, as well as Hampton and Chesapeake to make these Hampton Roads communities safer. Specifically, it provides $8.05 million from the general fund in fiscal year 2026 to support the expansion of the Safer Communities program, which is administered by DCGS. The program provides targeted grants and technical assistance to localities with disproportionately high violent crime rates. The next amendment is funding for VDOT's Wildlife Corridor program, and that's item 43810H. Virginia is among the 10 worst states in the nation for wildlife vehicle collisions, with over 60,000 crashes annually costing millions of dollars in damages, injuries to people, and lost biodiversity. The Virginia Transportation Research Council has shown that underpasses combined with fencing reduce deer vehicle collisions by 96%. And that fences pay for themselves in less than 2 years. This $460,000 budget amendment will help VDOT, along with other agencies, draw down federal funding to build critical infrastructures to help animals safely navigate around our roadways to reduce accidents and preserve biodiversity. Mr. Chair, my last amendment is item C48. 6H, replace ROTC facility planning. With Langley Air Force Base and the Oceana Air Station, we've got a lot of air power in Hampton Roads. But what we don't have is an Air Force ROTC program at any of our local universities. The closest one is at UVA. In Hampton Roads, we would like to attract Air Force ROTC. This amendment for $625,000 moves us closer to that goal by providing planning money to Christopher Newport University to replace its outdated, undersized Army ROTC facility. Currently, the program is housed in this cramped little 1960s split-level house. When I drive by, it looks like the Brady Bunch house. It cannot meet the current needs of the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Thomas.
His amendments begin on page 335.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I understand today that brevity is key. So first up, item 187, number 3H. This is for, so we currently have in Western Prince William County at the UVA Health Center, we have an ambulance. This would provide funding that would create a second ambulance that has wheelchair accessible, therefore making pickups throughout Western Prince William and surrounding areas more accessible for many more patients. Next item is item 288, number 31H. This is part of the Momnibus. This would extend Medicare and Medicaid funds to include diapers and baby changing materials. We know that babies need up to, and I can tell you this as a new parent with a 4-month-old, that around 3,000 diapers a year, though if I'm changing, maybe a little bit more, which can come out to $936 a year. This budget amendment in the first year of $12 million and roughly $400,000 would go a great way to helping low-income families be able to support their children. The final item is item 295, number 6H. This is particularly special as it directly addresses a very big problem here in Virginia, and that is the mental health of our students. What this program does, or what this amendment does, is actually just change language that's currently in the proposed budget. So the problem is that nationally students miss over 250 million school days each year due to physical and mental health issues. The solution is to actually bring those services into the schools. So the mechanics of how this has been working currently in the jurisdictions of Alexandria, Fairfax, Arlington, Henrico, and my own Prince William County is that a student can go to the nurse's office and not just receive mental health services from whoever happened to be there, but immediately through telehealth be piped into a child psychologist who has the utmost skills and training to help that child child through their mental health issue. When we've had outstanding results here in Prince William County with over 140 referrals so far. What this funding would do is would allow other localities to be able to use funding, including Prince William, so Prince William's not paying for itself, and these other localities can go ahead and utilize this money in a pilot program to truly make a dent in the mental health crisis that is afflicting our children here today. One note that I would really love to underscore is that the current language does need to be changed to specifically address qualified telehealth care providers that have a validated clinical outcome and experience serving Virginia students, and the providers shall ensure no direct costs are passed on to the patient, and all uninsured patients are covered at no cost. That last part being critical, because we don't want students to be afraid to use the service by going to school because they're afraid about incurring costs, which this would address that issue. I appreciate the committee's time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate McClure, followed by Delegate Shen.
And Delegate McClure begins on page 215.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my first budget amendment, item 102, number 1H, increases the annual appropriation to the Virginia Eviction Reduction Program by $3.15 million from the general fund. VERP provides funding to local and regional eviction prevention programs through a competitive grant process administered by DHCD, and the grantees use these very flexible funds to prevent evictions in their communities. Since April 2021, VERP has served 8,784 individuals from 3,813 households. The program has received nearly $16 million in requests, but has been forced to deny more than $7.3 million in assistance due to lack of funding. Nearly 15% of Virginia renters experience an eviction every year, 7 points above the national average. Increasing the appropriation to the VERP will protect those most at risk of experiencing evictions at a time when we expect evictions to rise to pre-pandemic levels. Mr. Chairman, my second budget amendment is item 295, number 5H, which would restore $7.5 million in funding to the school-based mental health integration program, which is administered by DBHDS. It would also require that DBHDS develop performance measures for participating sites. I'm carrying this amendment on behalf of the Behavioral Health Commission, and aside from the school-based mental health integration program, there is no other source of direct funding for mental health services in schools. So we need this funding to support school divisions with critical mental health services. Mr. Chairman, my final budget amendment is item 292, number 9H, which I am also carrying on behalf of the Behavioral Health Commission. This amendment directs the Department of Medicaid Assistance Services to develop 1115 demonstration waivers covering a housing benefit targeted to Medicaid beneficiaries with serious mental illness who need intensive ongoing support to obtain and maintain stable housing. The Permanent Supportive Housing Program administered by DBHDS is currently funded entirely with general funds, but an 1115 Medicaid waiver could be used to cover these costs and leverage those federal dollars, thereby leaving additional general fund dollars to be used for rental assistance. Housing costs are increasing throughout Virginia, and the program may have to serve fewer participants if additional funds are not available for those participants. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that concludes my top three items, number 102, number 1H, 295, number 5H, and 292, number 9H.
Thank you. Delegate Shen, followed by Delegate Lawfer.
Delegate Shen begins on page 286.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I really appreciate the opportunity to present to you today. I've submitted a number of budget amendments for your consideration that would have a really big impact on the lives of residents in the town of Herndon, Fairfax County, and more broadly for families across the Commonwealth. My priorities for this budget cycle include funding for the additional staff for the Fairfax County Public Defender's Office, which is item 40, number 1H, a demand-responsive microtransit pilot program to service the 4.2 square miles of the town of Herndon, which is item 433, number 2H, and a reinstatement of respite care for family caregivers, item 288, number 48H. But I would really like to focus my time today on item 40, number 1H, and the urgent need for additional funding for the Fairfax County Public Defender's Office. Typically, the Virginia Indigent Defense Commission offices cover the cities and towns within a county. For example, the Stanton office covers the cities of Buena Vista, Lexington, Stanton, and Waynesboro. The Smithfield office covers the cities of Franklin and Isle of Wight, and the Winchester office covers the towns of Berryville, Stevens City, Middleton, Strasburg, Woodstock, Newmarket, Edinburgh, Front Royal, and Luray. Lots. And for some reason, the Fairfax County Public Defender's Office has never covered the towns of Herndon or Vienna or the city of Fairfax, and no one really knows why. We've looked back as far as we can remember, and there is no, there's nothing on record materializing or memorializing this decision, and so we have no idea why that is the case. And consequently, that has remained the case for many, many years. And so if we fast forward to today, according to data from the Virginia court system in 2020 for the towns of Herndon and Vienna, 178 of the 8,000 general district court cases necessitated court-appointed counsel. And in 2024, GDC cases for Herndon and Vienna had increased to 11,000 cases, with 385 necessitating court-appointed counsel. So in a 4-year period, cases that required court-appointed counsel had more than doubled. And so we know that defendant outcomes are best when they have access to a public defender. And so while the number of cases requiring court-appointed counsel are growing both in the town of Herndon, the town of Vienna, and more broadly in the county of Fairfax, the number of court-appointed counsel who are available is decreasing to an alarming low, and we are facing a huge crisis and shortage of enough private attorneys willing to take on this caseload. So item 40... number 1H, is asking for $360,835 so that the Fairfax County Public Defender's Office can hire 3 new attorneys and ensure that residents of the towns of Herndon, Vienna, and as well as the city of Fairfax can have the same equal access to a public defender as other residents in the county of Fairfax. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Thank you. Delegate Lawfer, followed by Delegate Seabolt.
Delegate Lawfer begins on page 194.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I just want to say thank you for hearing testimony today. My first budget priority is item 101, number 3H, which allocates or asked to allocate $11.16 million of matching funds to Albemarle County for the purpose of advancing site readiness adjacent to the National Ground Intelligence Center, which is the Defense Department's primary producer of ground forces intelligence. This project, with state support, would help build out the complex, activating a projected economic output of more than $1 billion based on Weldon Cooper study. Virginia Economic Development Partnership Exec Vice President has said this is the greatest economic development opportunity in the Commonwealth right now. Thank you, Mr. Sickles, or Delegate Sickles, for watching me now. This is an amazing opportunity for the Commonwealth. This project takes the mega site approach and applies it to innovation economy, clearing the way for national security, intelligence agencies, companies, contractors, and academic researchers to collaborate. My second item is 200, number 5H. Out of this appropriation would be $979,308. This amendment would support increasing our dental hygienist programs across the Commonwealth and our Virginia Community College system. The Special Commission on Rural Health Care identified dental care as a critical need with a critical workforce shortage. These funds would help train more dental hygienists in the Commonwealth. And my last item is 297, number 23H. This amendment provides $482,000 of funds to support the Virginia Tele-Mental Health Initiative, which aims to expand access to timely and appropriate mental health services for uninsured and underinsured individuals by working together with Virginia's free and charitable clinic and pre-licensed mental health providers in the process of completing licensure. This amendment would allow VTMHI to increase their patient services by 50%. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. Delegate Seabolt, followed by Delegate Runyon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It begins on page 275.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Item 288, number 36H, will ensure that Medicaid beneficiaries with drug-resistant epilepsy in Virginia face fewer barriers to accessing the vagus nerve stimulator therapy. This is a really terrific treatment that can significantly reduce seizure frequency and improve quality of life for patients. This budget amendment will provide $500,000 from the general fund and $500,000 from the non-general fund in the second year to increase Medicaid reimbursement for these devices. The next The next one is item 124, number 36H. So in 2020, the General Assembly had passed legislation requiring school districts to provide menstrual supplies in school bathrooms. This is so that students can attend class uninterrupted. However, at the time, this was an unfunded mandate, and many school districts tell us now that they're unable to comply because the cost is burdensome. So this budget amendment will establish a menstrual product grant program that provides $250,000 this year for schools who need the extra funds. Thank you all so much. Appreciate your time.
Delegate Runyon.
His amendments
you,
are on
Mr.
page
Chair.
271.
Delegate Runyon will be followed by Delegate Jones.
My apologies, Director. I talked over top of you. Which item do you have first?
That's totally up to you.
Your
Okay,
priority.
mine. All right. I thought you said on mine. Very good. So good afternoon, members of the committee, Mr. Chair. Item number 434, number 1H, which is to provide additional funding to support Virginia's 9 short-line railroads. Amendment provides $5 million in the second year of the biennial for Rail Improvement Fund. The Rail Improvement Fund provides funding for short-line railroads to improve capacity and implement safety improvements for their tracks, allowing them to meet Class 2 track safety records. It's important to note, to qualify for funding, the short lines must provide a 30% match. Each year, the short lines collectively invest millions of dollars of their own funds to ensure their tracks are safe and reliable. Currently, $8 million is available annually to be shared among Virginia's 9 short lines to keep transportation safe. According to the Department of Rail and Public Transit, the last 3 years, the aggregate amount of funding requests for the RPF has exceeded $25 million. Inflation, particularly related to the cost of bridges, which is the big deal in this circumstance, and increases in railroad traffic have increased demand for a viable interconnective rail network. Over the past 3 years, the average project has increased over 20% to almost $1 million. Excuse me. It is amazing the amount of traffic that these short lines touch, 1 out of 5. Last year, there were 815,995 cars, or 3.2 million tractor-trailer equivalent loads that were not on our interstate highways. So I would appreciate your support on that. My next item is item number 64, number 2H. And this is, we have 2 of the smallest counties, Bath and Highland. In the Commonwealth, Bath has about 4,000 people, and Highland's a little less than 2,000. They have part-time Commonwealth attorneys now. And given the increased responsibilities that we've asked of our Commonwealth attorneys, including the fact that we're doing more jury trials now, they have to review more FOIA requests, and they have video observation requirements. These offices, I mean, we're talking about 3 people in office, they're really struggling to be able to perform the duties required and to provide the service that the citizens of the Commonwealth deserve in these small rural localities. So this would remove that stigma from the last 2 part-time Commonwealth attorneys in there. One thing to keep in mind is that the Commonwealth attorneys in that area are geographically removed. They have no other options to be able to move, excuse me, to be able to have other work to fill out their part-time. The last item I have is, is 128, number 1H. And this is an item for the reinstatement of the police force at Virginia School for Deaf and Blind.
Okay, we got your item number. You barely got 3 in under the time, but you got it in. We thank you. All right, yes, sir. Delegate Jones, followed by Delegate Davis.
Delegate Jones begins on page 171.
Mr. Chair, thank you, members of the committee. Item number 1113H. This amendment invests $250,000 in Richmond's small businesses by supporting the Metropolitan Business League and Bridging Virginia's Capital Access Program. This vital program directly empowers entrepreneurs from historically marginalized communities and economically disadvantaged backgrounds, providing them with the resources they need to start and grow their businesses. My second is item 125, number 13H, English Language Learner Add-on. This amendment allocates $55.6 million to directly support English learner students in our public schools. This funding will enhance the state's contribution to a per-student add-on, ensuring schools have the necessary resources to provide effective instruction and support for students learning English. My last is item 292, number 7H. Community Health Worker Services Benefit Rate Study. This budget amendment allocates $500,000 in FY 2026, $250,000 from the general fund and $250,000 from the non-general funds for the Department of Medical Assistance Services to study payment and benefit design for community health worker services. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Davis, followed by Delegate Obenshain.
Delegate Davis begins on page 109.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Speaking to item number 360, number 17H, and which I call the Westlake Trail or Connector Trail for Booker T. Washington National Monument. Franklin County is in the process of completing the Westlake multi-use trail, a trail that serves to connect the Booker T. Washington National Monument property with the fast-growing Westlake community. To ensure the connection to the monument, the county was recently required to redesign a portion of the trail's pathway. The majority of this project is currently funded with federal land access program funding, but a state budget of approximately $300,000 would close the funding gap and allow for the completion of the project. The Booker T. Washington National Monument is one of the only few national monuments in Virginia, and clearly the only one in Franklin County. I think today is an appropriate day to be mentioned in Booker T. Washington as well. The next amendment is item number 360, number 16H. And it's Franklin County Recreational Park Pavilion expansion. And we're seeking $700,000 for that. In fiscal year 2024, the Franklin County Recreation Park saw 154,176 visitors in a county with a population of a little over 40,000. The park hosts a variety of signature events throughout the year that celebrate Franklin County's unique agriculture heritage, including the Franklin County Ag Fair, Antique Farm Days, livestock shows, and local farm goods showcases, as well as it's used by many of our churches in our community. With attendance steadily increasing for these community-loved events, the pavilion is in desperate need for expansion to accommodate the larger crowd. State funding in the amount of $700,000 would allow for either an expansion to the existing pavilion or construction of a new multi-purpose structure. Next item, item number 394, number 10H. And it's the Veterans and First Responders Resiliency Training and Mental Health Support. And we're asking this for an organization named the Healing Strides, which is in our community, which the Healing Strides provides direct services to veterans and first responders through equine mental health support and reduce burnout and turmoil after the increased retention by teaching personal skills that will allow them to develop self-care. The services offered is open to any age, veteran and first responders, and knowing what first responders and our veterans have been through with repetitive job-related trauma, and yet typically they have not sought care. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Delegate Obenshain, followed by Delegate Coles.
Delegate Obenshain begins on page 243.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The first item is item 297, number 16H. This is a request for $7.8 million in general fund money from the second year of the budget to support our community services boards in implementing co-response programs under the Marcus Alert Act. And so this helps address the need for assisting those who are suffering a mental health crisis and having co-response programs in those CSBs. where it currently hasn't been implemented yet. And this is a request of the Behavioral Health Commission. The second item is item 130, number 11H. This is a language-only amendment. This directs SHEV to convene a working group to study and evaluate compensation and retirement benefits for our campus law enforcement officers. Campus law enforcement officers, there are some issues with recruiting and retention of campus law enforcement officers due to disparities in compensation and retirement benefits, particularly the issue of losing experienced officers to other agencies as a result of those disparities. And so this would direct SHEV to study that issue, to determine the causes of those disparities, and to recommend some potential solutions for dealing with those disparities in compensation and retirement benefits for our campus law enforcement officers. And then the last budget item is item C-52.10, number 7H. This is $23.5 million to Virginia Tech in capital funding to this is a repair of Daring Hall, Daring Hall was constructed in 1969, and this project would not replace Daring Hall, but it would renovate Daring Hall to extend the life of Daring Hall by about 25 years. This is the home of the undergraduate science programs, biology, geosciences. It contains classrooms, laboratories, offices, and it's an essential part of the science program there at Virginia Tech. And so I would note that this request received planning money in the 2024 budget last year, and so it is prepared to go forward with that project. So I thank the committee for its time and consideration.
Thank you. Delegate Coles, followed by Delegate Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Start on page 82.
As requested, I have three budget amendments before you. Item 176, number 1H. This amendment proposes startup resources to address a critical healthcare workforce shortage in the greater Fredericksburg region. With 3 hospitals, 28 healthcare facilities, and the opening this year of the largest VA hospital on the East Coast, the region is in desperate need of healthcare workforce, especially nurses. This was validated by a year-long study at the University of Mary Washington with a consultant that specializes in healthcare sciences. This budget amendment at the amount of $740,000 will fund startup resources for a Master's of Science in Nursing at the University of Mary Washington, which will be a 2-track program producing educators and nurse practitioners. Item 86, number 4H, is an amendment provides $25,000 from the general fund in fiscal year 2026 to support the Rappahannock Education Farm in Stafford County. The Rappahannock Education Farm is a critical resource for agricultural education and food security throughout the region. Through partnerships with local schools, community organizations, and volunteers, the farm educates residents on sustainable farming practices while producing thousands of pounds of fresh produce annually for food insecure families. This funding will ensure the farm can continue its mission, expand its programs, and address growing community needs. And the final item, Mr. Chair, is 102, number 19H. This amendment provides $25,000 from the general fund in fiscal year 2026 to support the Central Virginia Housing Coalition's housing counseling program in the city of Fredericksburg. Amid a housing crisis, this program is crucial for providing low-income families in Planning District 16 secure, stable housing by addressing financial burdens like Social Security deposits. This funding directly supports efforts to mitigate the ongoing crises and ensure vulnerable families can access safe and affordable housing. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Delegate Clark, followed by Delegate Tran.
Delegate Clark begins on page 75.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Today I have 3 amendments to present. First item is 102, number 5H, which would provide $750,000 to finish the phase 2 construction of a homeless shelter in the city of Suffolk that would serve the Western Tidewater region. The second item is item C-16.10, number 1H, would provide $750,000 to support a workforce trade and innovation center at Paul D. Camp Community College. This center is in partnership between the City of Suffolk and Paul D. Camp Community College with an aim to strengthen the talent pipeline for the maritime infrastructure, logistics, warehousing, and other skilled trades dependent industries. And the last item, number 277, number 7H, is a recommendation of the Select Committee on Rural Healthcare. It will provide $5 million to the Department of Health, working with Virginia universities and private businesses to create a pilot program for mobile clinics within 2 maternal health deserts in Virginia, as well as funding for data collections to measure the effectiveness of the programs. The goal of the program is to improve access in underserved communities and reduce transportation and geographic barriers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Delegate Tran, followed by Delegate Oates.
Delegate Tran begins on page 337.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for considering my amendments today. I'd like to recommend item 140, number 6H, to provide support to the College of William and Mary's Troops to Teachers Center. This will help address our teacher shortage across Virginia by assisting service members transitioning to the civilian workforce who want to become licensed K-12 teachers in the Commonwealth. I'd also like to recommend item 456, number 5H, to provide funding to Hope for the Warriors to further their mission of providing comprehensive mental health and supportive services to post-9/11 service members, veterans, reservists, military spouses, and their families in Northern Virginia. And lastly, I'd like you to consider item 289, number 2H, which would expand healthcare to vulnerable kids by creating a Medicaid-like program for 13,000 immigrant children in Virginia and help us reduce the number of uninsured kids in the Commonwealth. Thanks so much for your time.
Delegate Oates, followed by Delegate Early.
Delegate Oates is on page 240.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee and Director. I appreciate your willingness to listen to our priorities today. My first one is 442, number 12H. Sharando High School, which is one of the largest schools in my community, only has one access point in and out. The limitation imposes safety risk, especially in emergency situations where swift and efficient access is critical. To address this, Frederick County Sharando High School partnered with VDOT to fund the extension of the road to create a much-needed second access point. While VDOT has already allocated funds for FY 27 and 28, there's a remaining balance of $3,737 million required to complete the project, and the county has actually committed to funding half of it. So the request is for $1.868 million in state matching funds to fulfill the state's portion of this critical investment to ensure the safety and accessibility of Sharando High School for students, staff, and the community. And my second request is for 360, number 2H. This is a $1.5 million ask for the Rockland Park project, which will provide vital athletic facilities to engage youth in my community. Warren County has been disproportionately affected by the opioid crisis. We have received a sharing grant through the Department of the Interior and the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation for $2 million, and we need an additional $2 million to complete the project. The county has committed $500,000 and is asking for a request of $1.5 million in state funding to complete the match portion. This would provide much-needed accessibility to girls' softball. We have about 250 girls right now who play softball in my community, and there is a wait list because there aren't enough fields. So thank you for that. And my final request is 37117H. And this is for the Warren Heritage Society, which has been the historical society in our community for over 50 years. They are respectfully requesting $750,000 to undertake essential preservation work on multiple historic properties that are over 200 years old, and they're trying to waterproof them and prepare them for the 250th celebration. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Delegate Obenshain, followed by Delegate Reeser.
Delegate Owen begins on page 243.
Close enough.
Yeah, he spoke early.
Close enough.
I'm sorry.
Close enough.
Look up.
Y'all look the same.
Page 116.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll be very, very brief with you. I have 3 budget requests that I want to highlight. Number 394H, 395H, and 396H. They're all added felony penalties, so they each have a $50,000 budget request to meet the Woodrum Amendment requirement. 4H is tied to HB 2296, which is about protecting law enforcement. It creates a Class 6 felony for any person who unlawfully possesses and then recklessly or knowingly exposes a law enforcement officer or first responder to fentanyl. We're all aware of the finite amount it takes to cause death, and I want to make sure that we're preventing this from happening and ensuring that bad actors understand that there will be consequences for this. 5H is tied to HB 2299, which is about protecting our schools. All it does is add into the existing statute any public or private school and creates a Class 6 felony for individuals or groups that hack into these entities and create a cyber attack. Number 6H is tied to HB 2301, which is about protecting our children. It is adding to 2 codes of the section relating to crimes against nature and taking indecent liberties with children. Basically, these code sections relate to particular familial connections, and we noticed a gap in there, and we're adding uncles and aunts to there to make sure that accountability is there and to protect our kids. So thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Delegate Reeser, followed by Delegate Carlson.
Delegate Reeser begins on page 258.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I have 2 budget amendments to recommend to you. The first one, I would recommend item number 124. I'm sorry, the amendment 124, item number 37H. It's just for $30,000 to assist in the construction of handicap access improvements at Meadowland Elementary School. Although the county has earmarked funding for some improvements at Meadowland, those funds will not become available until the year 2029. And the allocation from the state would mean that the county money could be moved up to an earlier fiscal year that would allow for accessibility of ramps and curb cuts at a bus lot for the kids. Item number 2 is a recommendation for budget amendment 331, item number 22H, for $100,000 to assist Anasuta Community Kitchens. Anasuta Community Kitchens is a nonprofit organization of about 300 volunteers, which includes a large number of disabled and special needs volunteers who are addressing food insecurity in an innovative way. Anasuta Kitchens currently operates at a deficit that is funded personally by its founder and has been done so since its inception. And even as a county microgrant contender, the founder continues to need to contribute personal funds. These funds would cover operational expenses with a focus on Title I school communities, including delivering nearly 6,000 meals to homeless shelters, providing groceries and food items to families each month, and they would train individuals with developmental disabilities in culinary arts, food service, and safety. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Delegate Carlson, followed by Delegate McNamara.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to address this committee. I'm going to talk
on page 44. Sorry.
I'm going to go through my 3 amendments, starting with the lowest amount. I would ask for your support for Amendment 5 to Item 187, which requests $150,000 for the University of Virginia Medical Center to expand its sexual assault nurse examiner training program, also known as SANE. Virginia faces a critical shortage of SANEs with fewer than 150 statewide, which forces sexual assault survivors to travel long distances for care. The UVA program is uniquely positioned to train nurses, and it would greatly improve access to care and support public safety. This funding would support a 2-year pilot program and train approximately 30 nurses, addressing a critical need. My second item is I would ask and urge your support for Amendment 14 to Item 102, which requests $500,000 for the Department of Housing and Community Development in Charlottesville to fund a legal counsel program for tenants facing eviction. Currently, 90% of landlords are represented by counsel in eviction proceedings, with fewer of 10% of tenants represented. This disparity leads to unjust outcomes, disproportionately impacting families with children and minority families. Legal representation can reduce evictions by up to 19 times. So this study would hopefully not only make the system more fair, but help make it more cost efficient because it prevents homelessness, which is something that Charlottesville has been doing a lot of work around. And my last one, my biggest request is that I would ask for your support on Amendment 13 to Item 360, which requests $1,370,000 to build an ADA accessible trail connecting Southwood, which is a vibrant community in Charlottesville, to the newly opened State Park Biscuit Run. It's got 8.5 miles of walking trails, biking trails, and this would allow that whole community to connect to that. And we're also building a future park that would be connected by that trail. So those are my asks. Thank you for having me. And I ask for your support. Thank you.
Chairman, members of the Appropriations.
Delegate McNamara, you will be followed by Delegate Helmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The Roanoke Valley is in the midst of a $76 million, 120,000 square foot CTE center that will be used by multiple jurisdictions. This center will meet high demand. We'll have programs that will expand existing programs in welding, mechatronics, engineering, building trades, nursing, and culinary arts. New programs will be created to meet industry needs and demand in HVAC, collision repair, radiologic technology, dental assistant, and diesel mechanics. These jurisdictions have basically tapped into every resource they can come up with to come up with $76 million. They're about $3 million short, which will allow them to purchase some additional equipment. That list of equipment is provided with the budget amendment that will allow them to greatly expand the utilization of this regional program. I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Helmer, followed by Delegate Cardoza.
Delegate Helmer begins on page 139.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. In front of you is item 124, number 22H. This seeks $144,320, support 10 weeks of additional after-school instruction for our neediest students in Title I schools. As you may know, in Fairfax County, we've seen a surge of income insecurity due to rising costs, more mobility in our schools, and a surge of English language learners. This 10 weeks of additional instruction would allow preparation for students in advance of the SOLs and other examinations to make sure that those most disadvantaged students are able to continue with their learning. I hope the committee will accept this request. Thank you very much.
Delegate Cardoza will be next, and he's followed by Delegate Williams.
And Delegate round us out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 amendments to present to you today. The first one is item 368. Number 1H. It is for $50,000 to the Department of Wildlife Resources to repair monitoring devices at the Fox Hill boat ramp in the city of Hampton that is state property. The second one is item 484, number 4H, for $250,000 to the Virginia Retirement System to support House Bill 25779 for enhanced retirement benefits for 911 dispatchers. And the number 3 is item 360, number 18H, which is for the Department of Conservation and Recreation to repair the damage from wildlife relocation, and that had to do with the tunnel construction for Fort Wool. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Delegate, give me those items again, please.
All right. Number 1 is item 368, number 1H.
1 second, 368. Okay, second one, please.
Second one is item 484, number 4H.
And your third one, please.
Third one is item 360, number 18H.
How much is that last one for?
That last one is for $6,600,000.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Williams. Delegate Arnold.
Let's begin on page 381.
We got Delegate Williams, Delegate Arnold, and Delegate Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the committee for hearing these budget requests. I'd like to highlight item 61, number 2H. This is for $300,000 to the Patrick County Sheriff's Office to assist with a one-time unbudgeted inmate medical cost. Essentially what happened was an inmate has been going through an extreme number of medical procedures after being in a severe car accident that actually was caused to a severe car accident for the victim as well. But the DOC has not collected the inmate yet. The inmate hasn't been prosecuted. Essentially, the inmate is just sitting in our jail trying to recover. And so this is something that Patrick County is going to have a very difficult time actually stomaching. If at all possible, we'd ask that the state consider helping with those medical costs. The next one would be item 365, number 9H. This talks about $150,000 for the second year to support development of a comprehensive master plan for Floyd County's water and sewer systems. Floyd County has been doing a really good job with their maintenance and upgrading of their water and sewer, but unfortunately because of the slope and terrain, some of their water is creeping into their sewer, and so this would help them establish a master plan in order to avoid further contamination of their water in the town of Floyd, and we'd be seeking that amount of money. And then finally, I heard another community kitchen, so I thought I'd bring up item C 19.10, number 1H. This is about an $800,000 appropriation for matching funds for construction of the Richard S. Major Reynolds III Community Kitchen. This would be at Virginia Polytechnical Institute and State University's Reynolds Homestead, which is located in Patrick County. So those would be our requests. We'd like to highlight those for you, and thank you for hearing me today.
Thank you. Delegate Arnold, followed by Delegate Ballard.
Delegate Arnold begins on page 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'd start with item 102, number 13H. This is an amendment requesting $2 million to Grayson County to replace the Rugby Volunteer Rescue Squad's building, which was significantly damaged during Hurricane Helene. The Rugby Volunteer Fire Department serves the western portion of the county. It roughly answers or is either the primary or secondary response unit for roughly 2,000 citizens in the western side of the county. It is also the primary response agency for the Grayson Highlands State Park, which routinely sees 250,000 visitors a year, the Appalachian Trail, and the Mount Rogers National Recreation Area. Part of this money would be used to re-site this facility, which is flooded previously. My next item is item number 39017H. This is $4.4 million from the general fund to the Corrections Special Reserve Fund to reflect the estimated bed space utilization impact from my House Bill 1848, which has not been heard at this time. And finally, Mr. Chair, is item 371, number 11H. This would be $2 million to the County of Smith for capital improvements for the Octagon House in Smith County. This is a national and state landmark, and the hope is to turn this into a cultural and learning facility that represents all populations of Southwest Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to the, for the committee, I think we're about to wind up with a few more. I see 3 delegates, and hopefully that's going to be it. Okay, Delegate Ballard, followed by Delegate Lopez, and then Delegate Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. 3 budget amendments to highlight. The first is item 438-7H, and that is for the preliminary planning and engineering to widen a 3-mile stretch of Route 100 that connects Giles County to Pulaski County and the city of Radford. First, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, on behalf of my constituents, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to very briefly speak about this because it is crucial to the safety and economic vitality of the 42nd House District. The widening of Route 100 from Pulaski County to Giles County is something that has been talked about in the General Assembly for a long, long time. In fact, Mr. Chairman, it's said that Virginia's governor once stood on the courthouse steps in Giles County in 1970 declaring that widening Route 100, this 3-mile stretch, was a priority. And 16 years ago, Mr. Chairman, Delegate Annie B. Crockett Stark submitted a budget amendment, and in her explanation, she noted, quote, "After 30 years of waiting, Giles County is once again requesting that funding be appropriated to complete a 3-mile stretch of dangerous widening 2-lane road on Route 100 between Pearisburg and Dublin. It has been on and off the VDOT 6-year plan for many years, the latest effort removing it completely except for minor upgrades. It is a vital link from Giles County to Radford University, New River Community College, and many, many large employers in Pulaski County. It is a safety hazard that has caused many fatalities through a number of years. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we ask that you support that request for $28 million for the preliminary engineering and design. Second item, just a minor $28 million, dropping the bucket, Mr. Chairman, dropping the bucket.
I have a mic on, so you heard that was Sickles, not me.
maybe that's why this has been going on for about 40 years, right? The second item, Mr. Chairman, is 214-1H. It is brought on behalf of Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets. It's requesting a little over $700,000 to help maintain the Corps Cadets program, which provides students with the unique opportunity to work towards a future in the military while also attaining a college degree. Members of the committee, the 2024 graduating cohort had 102 students entering the U.S. Army, 65 entering the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps, and 57 entering the Air Force. This general fund request will help Virginia Tech's Corps Cadets program address the financial means required to provide the various skills and expertise needed for training exercises and to address the oversight and compliance requirements. Finally, Mr. Chairman, third item I'd like to highlight is item 172-1H. It's brought on behalf of Radford University. It's to recruit and retain nursing faculty. It's a little over $2 million. Essentially, Mr. Chairman, Radford is requesting the $2 million for FY 2026 to offer competitive salaries in order to recruit and retain additional faculty. Radford University is known throughout the Commonwealth as the premier institution for nursing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Lopez.
His amendments begin on page 201.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 12430H, thanks for your help last year. We created a program to cover all but $20 of advanced placement IB and Cambridge International Education exam fees for students eligible for free and reduced lunch programs, and it was funded at $750,000 per year. This is important because a full complement of tests for these programs can cost hundreds of dollars, and that is money that a family of 4 making $25,000 a year just doesn't have. Poverty should never be a barrier to success for our students. Of the 170,000 approximately students who took at least one AP or IB test in 2022, 90,000 did not take who took the class, 90,000 did not take the test. That's nearly a 54% drop-off, and the cost of tests surely accounts for a large portion of that drop-off. The good news, we took this problem head on, and the AP, IB, and Cambridge exam fee reduction program is a huge hit. The problem, after initial testing signups, the demand for the program has outstripped the $750,000 we allocated last year. The fund is $150,000 short of ensuring that every qualifying student can receive the fee reduction that we promised them when we created this program. Also, as you know, this investment has a multiplier effect on cost savings for these students and their families. According to the College Board, it's estimated just the AP credits earned in 2020 have the potential to save Virginia families more than $130 million in college costs. We're following states like Texas and North Carolina, and I hope you'll be able to pass this and add that $150,000. The second amendment is 13010H. Along with the great HBCUs, Virginia is home to one HSI, which is an Hispanic serving institution. HSI is a federal designation for a school where at least 25% of the institution's undergraduate population is Hispanic or Latino. That school is Marymount University, which is a student body that is 35% Hispanic and a freshman class that is 40% Hispanic. No other institution is even close to reaching that 25% threshold. Marymount faces a lot of the same retention issues faced by our HBCUs. Its retention rate is strikingly similar to Hampton's prior to the HBCU bump a few years ago. What we have is a need to for people at Marymount to have up to $3,000 more to help with their costs, and the university expects to see a similar jump in retention rates to the one it's experienced at HBCUs across the Commonwealth. The $2.1 million would help us invest in our workforce, particularly in areas that we are experiencing shortages. Marymount is home to an excellent and continuously improving nursing, computer science, engineering, cybersecurity, IT, AI, and education programs. I think this is a win-win-win. We support our Commonwealth's only HSI, we support our students, and we build up our workforce in these emerging career areas. Finally, Mr. Chairman, the 359, number 14, and also 14H and also 17H, both dealing with our soil and water conservation districts. 500,000 and then 2 million. I hope we can actually address it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate it.
You only get 3.
I know, but 3.5 is not so bad.
Oh, well, when you do that, I subtract 1.5 from the 3.
That's fair, Mr. Chairman. That's fair. Thank you very much, sir, and members of the committee.
Delegate Singh.
And his amendment is on page 326.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And members of the committee, I'm offering Budget Amendment 240-10-1H, which would cut costs at Virginia's public universities. Mr. Chairman, I was born and raised in Northern Virginia, and I'm a proud graduate of our public schools, including the University of Virginia. But today, college tuition costs have become unaffordable. When I was in college, tuition, room, and board was $15,000 a year, and now it's $40,000 a year. This is a problem plaguing schools across Virginia and the country. Students can't afford to attend, and if parents can help at all, they have to decide whether to fund their child's education or their own retirement. Moreover, students are drowning in student loan debt. Our higher ed system, as currently constituted, is unsustainable. That's why I'm offering this amendment. This amendment would require the public universities lower tuition by 5%. Half of their lost revenue would be paid for by the state, while the other half would come from cuts at our colleges. This is a tough but fair compromise that puts us back on an affordable trajectory. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Keys-Gamarra.
Her amendments begin on page 176.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I do have my top 3. The first one is related to Budget Request 331, number 13H for Cornerstones. Cornerstones is a remarkable organization that works in my district and surrounding areas, serving more than 26,000 people, addressing issues of safe housing, food security, child care, youth enrichment, and family sufficiency. They have, to a large extent, served as an umbrella organization, and they have had an increase of needs of about 32% over the last year. I'm asking for $1 million. They are currently receiving about 60% of their funding from Fairfax County. and due to expected reductions in county funding, I am submitting this request. If this were granted, they would be able to increase staffing capacity, sustain critical programs, address further food insecurity, which is growing, and strengthen their service capacity. That's the first one. I thought I had 2 minutes. Okay. The second one has to do with, doesn't have a budgetary, I don't believe, but we're simply changing changing the regulations regarding hemp so that there is only one requirement. There should not be a need to obtain a separate regulated hemp product facility registration for events that operates for no more than 14 consecutive days or at farmers markets. And lastly, I'm referring to request 125, number 12H, which we are asking on behalf of our public school systems that we eliminate the linear weighted average for the SOQ formula. This request supports recommendation 6 from JLARC's 2023 Virginia K-12 funding formula to calculate salary and other SOQ formula cost assumptions using the division average rather than the linear weighted average. The standards of quality formula underestimates salaries and other compensation costs of the majority of the schools impacted. The difference between SOQ calculated compensation costs and actual compensation costs for SOQ recognized staff excluding health care has been about $1.3 billion annually. This proposal would return to a true average, more accurately reflecting what divisions actually pay and not unfairly penalize divisions in higher cost labor markets. Finally, per JLARC's estimates, the change would increase state funding to all school divisions.
Thank you. Delegate Kent.
Your amendments begin on page 173.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. My apologies for being out of order. I just wanted to speak to two amendments that we've requested. The first is item 2802H for the town of Bowling Green. Recently, our town in Caroline County, Bowling Green, has undergone a lot of work and efforts because they have found gross alpha in their wells, which is requiring new wells to be dug in the town to provide clean drinking water and adequate drinking water. As such, it has resulted in quite the price tag for this locality, and they're seeking assistance after speaking with numerous folks and getting all the scientific data of $8 million. So we would request that in order to help the citizens of the town of Bowling Green. In addition, shuffling to item 87, number 1H. I'll be quick since I know that time is of the essence. This is regarding a bill that we put in, which is the Virginia Commission for Agricultural Excellence, Education Excellence. Agriculture is the #1 industry in the state of Virginia, and we are working to ensure that we bring education to not be siloed and that we can create a group together that can work on agricultural excellence and bring those stakeholders together in Virginia, as we did back in 2013 to modernize it today. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. I don't believe there's anything else to come before the committee. We've heard from the members in the House. This committee stands adjourned.
General government.